Law and order is one of the cornerstones of Canadian society. The concept that if you're caught committing a crime, you can expect to pay the consequences. And usually those consequences are meted out here in the law courts. But many Canadians aren't aware that there's an alternative route, an alternative that's called restorative justice.
Restorative justice is a process in which people who have committed crimes go through a setting in which they confront their victim. They sit in a round circle and talk about what they've done. They listen to the harm it's created, and then they work to repair the harm.
And for RCMP Constable Jason Padaverda, it's a system that works, and he uses the example of a typical shoplifting case.
When I go on the scene and you're kind of looking at we'll use a kid because usually it's a youth. You can see that there's some emotional response there. They're crying, they're nervous. Lets us know that, oh, this kid knows that they've done something wrong. This kid knows that they're in trouble, so consequences. I'll take the store owner aside or the store security person aside, and we'll have a conversation. How was the person when you talked to them? Were they disrespectful? Did they admit to what they've done? What do you want to see here? We try to make everybody involved. That includes the youth.
It also, and perhaps most importantly, has to involve the victim, someone who is willing to face the perpetrator in a forum. Someone like Diane Best, who was involved in an incident at work.
The RCMP were called, and I was told that if I wanted to, I could press charges. I was already familiar with the restorative justice program, and I thought, I need to think about this charging a student and bringing in the police. I wasn't sure exactly that that's what I wanted to do. So I gave it some thought and went with the restorative justice route.
At the forum, you'd have the victim and the perpetrator, and each of them would bring support systems. Sometimes that's only one person, sometimes that's two or more. The police officer who referred the case is usually there, and the facilitator, so myself or one of the other facilitators.
What the forum allowed me to see was, or to gain, was a better understanding of where this young man was coming from and what some of his background was. It gave me some sort of an explanation.
Understanding and explanations are good things, but we're talking about crimes here. And so the question has to be asked, is this justice?
My personal opinion is I feel it is. One, because when we do send someone to restorative justice, they understand, they agree, and they buy into it. Often with the criminal, going the route of criminal charges, does that person take ownership of what they've done? Does that person see the harm that they may have caused or see the effect that it has on police, public, the store, their families? Often no. A lot of these criminal matters can be dealt with without that person attending court. So they get something on their record that they don't see, a consequence that they don't feel.
In Diane's case, there was also closure when she ran into the same young man several years later.
And he said, I want you to know that it did make me do a lot of thinking, and it made me realize that if I didn't do some things, that there might be some important people in my life right now who won't be in my life in the future.
According to the Port Alberni RCMP, not one perpetrator who has gone through a restorative justice forum has shown up later in the court system, and that has to be a success story. In Port Alberni, for Shaw TV, I'm Nancy Wilmot.